I would like to talk about this urban and nature combination more, about a next city, and I would like to share with you the idea if this new systemic approach we see in architecture today can serve as an inspiration for economy. Picking up the thread of Dan, I would like to contribute some observations from my professional as an architect, researcher, and university teacher. And I'm very grateful for your invitation to speak here today. And I would like to argue that we are at a tipping point, and the past period can be seen as a critical momentum for this change Dan was talking about. And this will be a change for architecture and also for economy. And I'm a little bit talking more about nature and cities and ecosystems, and in connection also with, we heard with Martin before, and also thanks Kimberly for your presentation. And I will also not show so much the disadvantages, but as an architect also looking to the future with an optimistic point of view. Today, we are at the point in history where we have an unprecedented huge amount of knowledge available, and we are capable of interfering with most complex systems. In Holland, maybe you know, we temporarily changed the direction of rivers, to just give an example. But as Harari says, we know how to interfere, but we are not yet aware of all the widespread and unexpected consequences of our actions. Or if you look at Albert Schweitzer, he put it wisely, I think 100 years ago, we are living in dangerous times, he said. We have learned to dominate nature before mastering ourselves. And the image you see here, of course, is the design of the landscape design of Versailles. And Le Nôtre in 1660 on the swamp, which was considered a bad landscape, and that man had to improve it in a very strict way. So since the Renaissance, we are claiming such a dominant position. We have disconnected ourselves from nature by thinking and designing our built environment. Man is a part of nature, but had put himself above it or even outside nature. Today, we are spending most of our days indoors, in offices or homes. The past months of COVID-19 showed unprecedented climates that did not go well. I know of cities where you had increase of domestic violence, psychological stress. And we heard some of course, also from Kimberly and others, but how was your Corona time so far? Especially when you think about the lockdown period. I hope it didn't look like this. Playtime, of course, by Jacques Tati, 1967. But I want to move to a more optimistic perspective. Today we understand complexity better than ever before. We recognize our planet, also as Martin said, as an ecosystem, and we realize that we are only part of that natural system, one part. We are ordinary animals too, and not, as previously viewed, the one species that is placed above nature trying to dominate it. So also cities, as Stan said, they are ecosystems, and that's actually a subject I'm teaching at the Academy of Architecture in Amsterdam. Humans flock to ever-growing cities, ideally arrival cities, as Sanders put it. They hope for a better future. The majority of man is already living in cities, and rushing urban growth does not help when it comes to this quality of life in cities. And then I don't even talk about climate change. To put it short, especially for my profession, but I think also for economists, it's time to act. This is the growth, as you can see, of the largest cities per hour in 2015, which has only increased ever since. But also on a smaller scale, we have realized that also our buildings are part of a more complex system. Often simple architectural design in the past and the best intentions, even of modernism, have made us live and work in ultimate protection from nature, although we are nature too. It was said earlier that they are sometimes more suitable in storing tools, our buildings. And instead of increasing well-being and productivity, they can contribute to large numbers of stress-related illnesses and burnout. In Holland, we have something which is called overspannen, and that has increased 50% in the last 10 years. We even coined the term sick buildings. But also in that respect, we have recently learned to think in systems. When it comes to the input of offices, for example, experts have found out that more than 10 criteria are relevant for the well-being and optimal performance of people working in offices. But that means that they also deliver social and ecological values, happiness, fitness, productivity, and increased self-esteem. You can even get a certificate for this criteria, which is appropriately named WELL. And within these criteria, also the connection of with nature is one of the topics, but about that more in a minute. As an architectural designer, of course, I look at global urgencies and economy, the topic of this conference, from the perspective of design. By default, design thinking can deal with a lot of unknown factors. Designing and research by design is thinking in systems with many, sometimes unknown variables, and differs substantially from other scientific research. I would like to argue that in this situation, it's an advantage when you look at complex matters we are facing today. As an architect, my focus is the future of the city and how to improve quality of life in a time when we face not only economic pressure in our city, but also global urgencies like climate change. In fact, our actions in trying to dominate nature set us apart from nature, and we have set a huge footprint on our planet. But as children of this man-made age, the Anthropocene, as Krutzener put it, we can also adapt the footprint in benefit of the planet. We can reconnect to nature. And I guess many of us felt this urge in the lockdown period. This is not too strange because we are part of nature too. And the term biophilia by Wilson expresses this natural need. And biophilic design shows how to reconnect with nature in design and building materials. So we need porosity towards nature in our enclosed buildings and porosity in our traditional thinking. We need to open windows in thinking and in reality. So I think this weather project by Eliasson illustrates very well this inner urge to connect with nature. And there's good reasons to do so, because research shows that being in connection with nature makes people feel better and perform better. Patients get well quicker in hospitals, students learn better in schools. Reconnecting with nature in the domain of architectural design is my personal interest and focus. With our platform, Next City, we published the first guide to nature inclusive building in 2019. And as an architect, I'm dealing in the promise of a better future. And by definition, I'm an optimist. Therefore, I'd like to refer to the Microsoft CEO Nadella, who was mentioned in the introduction, that we did 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months in this period. And I think this black swan of COVID-19 can also be seen as a chance when it comes to introducing nature and thinking in natural ecosystems. Introduce the other values next to economic as social values and ecological values, as Brundtland put it in the Sustainable Development Criteria. So why not make our buildings and cities nature inclusive? And the Netherlands, they are highly digitized. As a trades nation, they're interested in profit, and there's a lot of profit, which I mentioned before. And in Holland, we are pragmatic. So why not let buildings deliver social, ecological, and economic values to our economies by ecosystem services? Rediscovering the fact that our cities are urban ecosystems make us able to see the value of these ecosystem services. And with the Dutch attitude of makeability, to design a rich ecosystem and receive their revenues, such as biodiversity, supporting, provisioning, regulating, and cultural ecosystem services. This includes buffering heavy rains, avoid floods, moderate urban heat islands, absorb fine dust, and not the least, provide us with food, medicine, and building materials. In short, we can improve the quality of life of all species. And this is my last slide. Quality of life of all species, especially in cities where the future of mankind takes place, is a task for research, policy, and design. we learned that again in the conference organized by Vereniging Delta Metropole in BNA a couple of days ago. And to come back to my initial statement, we are at a tipping point, and we know things we did not know in the past. We can think in complexity today, and by thinking nature inclusive, we are able to contribute to the Paris goals, the Davos Declaration, and the UN Sustainable Development Goal. And we learned that design can show us how this sustainable nature inclusive future could look like. This is the Forest City concept by Stefano Boeri, who built a couple of buildings, including in Eindhoven. Is building one, I think, the Trudeau Toren, that combines nature and city. So I think it's a change in economy which is needed, and design can be of use in that, because we learned that knowing that we have to change does not help, but design just might. So today I think the time is right for this. Thank you very much for your attention.